Welcome to Magic Circles in the Skies and today's episode. But before we begin, I'd like to give thanks to all the people that have liked, shared, and subscribed to this channel. It's very much appreciated. Now, let's begin with today's episode, which is called The Three Apprentices by the Brother Grimms, which I've renamed as Many in Body, One in Mind. The structure will remain the same, starting off with a brief summary where I'll digress in a few highlighted sentences, give a brief reflection, and my pearls of wisdom. We'll move on to a review where discuss how this fairy tale plays out in today's society. Then it will be followed by a parallel and a contrast to this fairy tale using a film. And last but not least, we'll use the trigger points and my quote at the very end. So let's begin. In The Three Apprentices, the Brother Grimes, or Many in Body, One in Mind. The three apprentices, who had always worked together, find themselves unemployed and struggling. I digress. Devoted team players. They decide to separate if they can't find work in the next town. I digress. Unfortunately, deciding to break up a unified force to get work and support each other. On their journey, they encounter a richly dressed man with a horse's foot and a man's foot who offers them a deal. I digress. This deal feels like a poison pill. If they follow his instructions, they will become wealthy and successful. I digress. It's interesting how wealth and success are connected to well-being and being perceived as successful in society. They agree as the man reassures them that their souls won't be endangered, for he only seeks another soul that is already half his. I digress. Could it be the well-dressed man feels incomplete as a person? Reflection, the power of unity and friendship. The three apprentices stick together throughout the story, facing adversity as a unit. This emphasized the strength that comes from unity and the importance of camaraderie and loyalty in overcoming difficult circumstances. The power, my pearls of wisdom, the power of many in body, one in mind, the loyalty of friendship that is very difficult to break. The devil, which is the man, the devil gives them each a phrase to repeat that prohibits them from saying anything else. I digress. The devil wants to control the narrative of guilt by demanding they use this phrase. The first apprentice must say, all three of us. The second, for money. And the third, and quite right too. If they follow these instructions, their pockets will never be empty. I digress. The lure of money usually persuades people to forget their principles. I digress. They receive money and head to the specific inn. At the inn, they communicate solely through the designated phrases, drawing attention as madmen. I digress. So people perceive them as strange, not normal, and something to be feared like criminals. Reflection, temptation, and consequences. The apprentices are tempted by the devil with the promise of wealth and success. While they manage to escape unharmed in the end, their decision to accept his offer initially leads to their entanglement in a murder and near execution. This serves as a reminder that giving in to temptation may have unforeseen dangerous consequences. This is true. Pearls of wisdom, the lure of toxins of the superficial power of money and success. A merchant arrives at the end, worry, worried that the apprentices might steal his money. I digress, unaware the apprentices have money of their own, they don't need his. The innkeeper agrees to safeguard the money, but later that night he and his wife murder the merchant and steal his riches. I digress. The concerned murderer and thief planting the seeds of doubt on the apprentices, I bet. In the morning, the merchant is found dead, and the innkeeper blames the three apprentices, of course. I digress. Projection and distraction to abscond himself of guilt. When questioned, the apprentices can only respond with their phrases, seemingly confessing to the crime. What a shame. I digress. Hence the need for the three apprentices to remember these phrases. Reflection. The deceptive nature of appearances. The richly dressed man with a horse's foot and a man's foot is revealed to be the devil in disguise. The innkeeper, initially appearing to be a trustworthy figure, is later exposed as the murderer. This highlights the theme of appearances being deceptive and that one should not blindly trust others without deeper understanding. Pearls of wisdom. All that glitters isn't gold. The appearance of deception can act like a magnet at times. They are taken to court, and despite their fear, the devil appears to reassure them that they will be unharmed. I digress, because the devil has another plan which doesn't include the apprentices. The judge sentenced them to death, but before they are executed, a carriage arrives with a pardon. I digress. The innocent hero arrives just in time. The devil emerges as a nobleman, freeing the apprentices and allowing them to speak. I digress. Coming to the rescue to disguise who he really is. They reveal the innkeeper's guilt, leading to his execution, and the devil claims his soul. I digress. The devil needed a corrupt soul like the innkeeper, not the apprentices. The apprentices are freed, and their newfound wealth ensures their prosperity for the rest of their lives. I digress. Their friendship lasts with a happy ending. Reflection. The dangers of greed. The innkeeper's greed leads him to murder the merchant, ultimately resulting in his own execution. This serves a cautionary tale about the perils of succumbing to greed, emphasizing the importance of moral integrity over the pursuit of material wealth. Pearls of wisdom. Greed disguises the immorality hidden behind ambition. What an interesting fairy tale. How this fairy tale plays in today's society, I'm sure it plays in today's society very well in some ways. This is a fairy tale that mirrors the lives of how people are in society. People who have been conditioned to believe that appearances and wealth measure up to success as a person navigating the material world. The devil acts as a catalyst to the three apprentices to hope to fulfill his needs of becoming whole. The devil, the apprentices, and the economy of the soul. In the three apprentices, the devil's aim is not chaos for its own sake, but completion. He wants to be complete because he's only half a soul. He is fragmented, lacking wholeness, and believes that possessing a soul will make him whole. This is crucial. The devil does not create life, he can only appropriate it. The apprentices become instruments in his pursuit. They are not targeted because they are evil, but because they are available. Their susceptibility lies in their orientation towards gain, appearance, and advancement. The devil uses this and manipulates this, of course. The devil uses what already exists within them: ambition, fear, desire for recognition, in the hope that one of them will surrender something essential in exchange for success. The devil does not succeed in taking an apprentice's soul. Instead, he turns to the innkeeper, a figure who outwardly participates in respectability, but inwardly harbors violence. I believe the devil chose his victim when the innkeeper murders the wealthy man. That act is not incidental. It reveals a soul already severed from consciousness. The devil does not need to tempt here. The soul is already ripe for the taking. Paradoxically, the apprentice are rescued through this act, not because murder is redemptive, but because the story draws a sharp distinction between being tempted by evil and embodying it. Wow, this is interesting. The apprentices are flawed, yet still capable of returning. The innkeeper crosses the threshold from which there is no turning back. Symbolically, this reveals something profound about society. The devil is not completed by wealth, power, or status. He is completed only by soullessness. The wealthy man represents material success without moral depth. The innkeeper represents moral collapse hidden beneath social function. Together, they show that evil thrives not in obvious villains, but in systems where humanity is exchanged for gain. My goodness. So now we're going to move on to a parallel with the film The Devil's Advocate used as a parallel. Why it contrasts well. This film presents a world where the devil can seduce by appealing to ambition, success, and self-justification. But the soul is not stolen outright. Instead, it is slowly handed over through repeated choices. Unlike in the fairy tale, where evil requires a soul already aligned, in The Devil's Advocate, it explores how alignment is gradually persuaded and constructed. It highlights how charisma, for example, and validation and power can anesthetize conscious over time. The contrasting point, the fairy tale looks at evil's needs, likeness first. In the film, likeness is cultivated through success and flattery. This sharpens the reflection on how modern systems train people towards alignment without overt violence. In the devil's advocate, likeness is cultivated through success and flattery. The devil patiently shapes the soul by rewarding ambition and stealing the ego, validating the ego and stealing it, and dulling the consciousness until alignment feels natural, like a twin. In the Three Apprentices, the devil attempts the same strategy. He offers gain, advantage, and the illusion of completion, but the apprentices are not convinced. Temptation alone is not enough. Their souls remain alive, unsettled, still capable of refusal. The difference is not the presence of evil, but the absence of consent. Where in the devil's advocate, it shows how alignment is slowly chosen. The fairy tale insists that without inward agreement, evil cannot complete its work. The trigger points. Wow, what an interesting fairy tale. In the trigger points, the fairy tale cleverly folds the complexities of temptation versus embodiment of evil under one umbrella. In this debate of the story, it exposes how we carry the weight of guilt for our temptation as a form of control and self-punishment in society and sometimes through the church. However, temptation is desire, which is human, but it's not evil leading to sin. But embodiment is the execution of evil, which is sin. We often confuse this as though being human is a flaw, but it's simply the response of human nature. This is so interesting, people, because temptation must come. And the jewel in the crown to temptation is our ability to resist, pardon me, to resist the temptation so we can experience self-discipline and self-mastery. That is the power. That is why the law of temptation must come to for us to bear wisdom to our discipline and to our ability to resist. That is the power. To resist stepping over into the threshold of acts of sin and evil. I want to share with you something out of the Bible, actually, that I can also reflect on in modern day society. Uh, King David is in the Bible was the younger David when he confronted the Goliath and hit him with a stone and won with it using his own tools, his own weapons, and the word of faith and Christ. Well, he grows up and he becomes a king, and he was is in actual fact he's one of the favorites in the Bibles and include, I think, Jesus is of that lineage of King David. Well, King David becomes a formidable leader and he has power over the army and the military. Well, one day he's at home, he's not on the battlefield, and he looks over the balcony and he sees this beautiful woman bathing in her bath, and it's Bathsheba. So he gets distracted and he gets tempted and he decides to follow through on his temptation. He lays with Bathsheba and they consummate their relationship and she gets pregnant. She's impregnated. Well, he realizes that her husband is on the battlefield, not on the front line, but near the front line. And so he decides that his jealousy decides that, oh, well, I'll just put her husband right in the front line, in the line of fire, so he gets killed. And so he can have Bathsheba to himself and they can live happily ever after. Or what happens? He realizes that he went way, way, way too far beyond temptation. There was no self-discipline exercise there. And he really asks for forgiveness and everything. And, you know, well, he repents and he asks for forgiveness. And I believe he does get that forgiveness in the end. And this is the same thing that happens in society, people. We can be tempted, and there's nothing wrong with temptation. It's the ability to resist that enables us to self-mastery, and that enables us to decide the power of choice instead of, stepping over into sin or into evil behavior. It's that power of choice and not recognizing the temptation is there, but recognizing that we have the power to resist and not step into what is considered sin. So we're in a very empowered position by being tempted, and there's nothing wrong with being human. And there are many times, I think, in our lives that we have stepped into sin because we've chosen to ignore the resistance and the discipline of resistance and the power of resistance. It's like a chocolate cake. You know that you shouldn't be eating that chocolate cake because you're not really hungry anyway. You're just tempted by it. But you just say, but your greed says, well, I need to have it. I want to have it. And it doesn't matter how, if resistance is coming up, you say, well, I'll just forget about resistance for now. I'll just jump over and have this chocolate cake. And sometimes, we end up getting sick because we've eaten too much and we've gone too far. But that's just a lighter example. But temptation must come, and being human is not a flaw. It's a wonderful condition to exercise the power within ourselves to be able to resist, to experience self-mastery, and to have control and power over our lives. So that's the end of today's episode. And thank you so much for listening. And I will just end with my quote. Healing is a lifelong lesson, blessing, and gift we give ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Healing is a lifelong lesson, blessing, and gift we give ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Goodbye for now. Thank you.